January 5th, 1942, 9 p.m. Colditz Castle, Saxony. Two German officers walk briskly through the frozen courtyard. Their boots echo against centuries-old stone. A guard snaps to attention as they approach the main gate. He sees the uniforms, the confident stride, the peaked caps. He doesn't see the stitching made from bedsheets. He doesn't notice the buttons carved from melted phonograph records. He has no idea the green wool is actually a painted British Army blanket. The gate swings open. Lieutenant Airey Neave and Dutch officer Tony Lutane step into the darkness beyond the castle walls. Behind them, the most escape-proof prison in Nazi Germany. Ahead, 400 miles of enemy territory and a desperate march to Switzerland. They have exactly 30 minutes before the Germans discover they're gone. Colditz Castle rises from a rocky cliff above the River Mulde, like a medieval fortress frozen in time. For 400 years, it served as a hunting lodge for Saxon royalty. By 1940, the Nazis had transformed it into something far more sinister. Oflag 4C, a special prison for the most dangerous Allied officers in German captivity. Not dangerous because they were violent. Dangerous because they refused to stay captured. The Germans called it a Sonderlager, a special camp. Every prisoner inside had already escaped from other facilities. The French, the Polish, the Dutch, the British, all of them repeat offenders. All of them sent here because the Wehrmacht believed Colditz was impossible to escape. The numbers supported their confidence. Walls 7 feet thick, a sheer 100-foot drop into the river below. Floodlights sweeping the courtyards every 30 seconds. Guard towers at every corner. More guards than prisoners, a ratio unheard of in any other camp. One way in, one way out, the main gate. And that gate was watched by armed sentries, 24 hours a day. By the time Airey Neave arrived in May 1941, over 300 Allied officers called this medieval nightmare home. Most had already tried to escape from other camps. Many would try again here. Few would succeed. Airey Neave was not born a warrior. At Oxford, he studied law. He dreamed of courtrooms, not battlefields. But when Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, the 23-year-old lieutenant answered the call. He was commissioned into the Royal Artillery, attached to the Searchlight Regiment. By May 1940, he found himself in the French port of Calais, the last line of defense between the advancing Wehrmacht and 300,000 Allied soldiers trapped on the beaches of Dunkirk. The orders were simple: hold the town at all costs, buy time for the evacuation. For 4 days, Neave and his men fought street by street. German tanks rolled through medieval alleyways. Artillery reduced ancient buildings to rubble. On May 26th, a German shell exploded near Neave's position. Shrapnel tore through his side and leg. He collapsed in a doorway. Hours later, German soldiers found him bleeding in the ruins. The Battle of Calais was over. Airey Neave was now a prisoner of war. His wound saved his life, but condemned him to captivity. After treatment in a French hospital, the Germans transferred him east first to Stalag XXA, near Thorn, Poland. He lasted 5 weeks before his first escape attempt. Disguised as a German soldier with a stolen cap and forged papers, he walked out of the camp. He made it 20 miles before a patrol caught him. The punishment: solitary confinement. Then a transfer order. Destination: Colditz. The Germans had identified Airey Neave as a problem. They had no idea how right they were. Airey Neave arrived at Colditz in May 1941. Within weeks, he was already planning his next escape. The castle's medieval architecture worked against the Germans in one crucial way. It was a labyrinth. Centuries of construction had left hidden passages, forgotten cellars, and blind spots the guards couldn't fully cover. The prisoners studied every shadow. By August, Neave had a plan. He would disguise himself as a German guard, walk through the inner courtyard during the evening roll call confusion, and slip through a gate leading to the German quarters. From there, the path to the main exit was short. He had acquired pieces of a German uniform, dyed fabric, painted buttons, a cap obtained through bribery. His fellow prisoners provided covering noise during roll call. Everything was set. On the night of the attempt, Neave made his move. He walked with German precision, shoulders back, eyes forward. He approached the courtyard gate. A guard stopped him. The uniform was wrong. The shade of green too dark. The cut of the tunic not quite right. In the stark castle lights, the flaws were obvious. Neave was seized immediately. The Germans threw him into solitary confinement for 28 days. A stone cell. No light, minimal food, freezing temperatures. Most men would have abandoned hope. Neave spent those 28 days analyzing his failure. The uniform had betrayed him. Next time, it would have to be perfect. Next time, he would need help. In the autumn of 1941, Airey Neave met the man who would change everything. Anthony Luton was a Dutch lieutenant, captured during the German invasion of the Netherlands in May 1940. Like Neave, he had already attempted escape from other camps. Like Neave, he had been sent to Colditz as punishment. Unlike Neave, Luton spoke fluent German with an accent that could pass for Bavarian. The two men recognized something in each other, a refusal to accept captivity, a willingness to risk everything. They began to plan together. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source: the prison theater. Colditz allowed its prisoners to stage theatrical performances, a small mercy meant to prevent unrest. The theater was located in a section of the castle that bordered the German officers' quarters. Neave discovered a door. It was hidden beneath the stage, obscured by wooden panels. It led to a corridor that connected to the guardhouse courtyard, the German side of the castle. No prisoner had ever crossed into that section. It was unthinkable. That made it perfect. The plan crystallized. Disguise themselves as German officers, pass through the hidden door, cross the German courtyard with absolute confidence, and walk straight out the main gate. Simple, audacious, suicidal. But Neave had learned from his failure. This time, every detail would be flawless. The uniforms, the documents, the timing. This time, they would walk out the front door. Creating a German officer's uniform inside a maximum security prison required ingenuity bordering on madness. The prisoners of Colditz had developed an underground economy of escape: tailors, forgers, chemists, artists. Each man contributed his pre-war skills to the collective dream of freedom. For Neave and Luton, the first challenge was fabric. German officer tunics were field gray wool with a distinctive green tint. British Army blankets were brown. The solution came from the prison's secret chemistry department, a mixture of boot polish, crushed pencil leads, and dye extracted from the covers of books. The blankets were soaked, dried, and transformed. Under dim electric light, the color passed inspection. A Dutch naval officer named Scarlett O'Hara, his real name, served as tailor. Working with smuggled needles and threads pulled from bedsheets, he constructed 2 complete German officer uniforms. The stitching was invisible. The cut was precise. The buttons presented another problem. German military buttons were made of stamped metal. The prisoners had none. Instead, they melted gramophone records over candles, poured the black liquid into hand-carved molds, and painted them silver. From 3 feet away, they looked authentic. Caps were shaped from cardboard and covered with dyed cloth. Belt buckles were carved from wood and wrapped in tinfoil from cigarette packages. The forgers produced identity documents using hand-drawn Gothic lettering and stamps carved from boot heels. Finally, Luton drilled Neave on German phrases, pronunciation, intonation, military greetings. By January 1942, 2 German officers existed who had never served in the Wehrmacht. They were ready. January 5th, 1942. The temperature outside has dropped to minus 15 degrees Celsius. Snow blankets the Saxon countryside. Inside Colditz Castle, the prisoners gather for the evening's theatrical performance. The play is a distraction, a carefully orchestrated one. At 8:30 p.m., Airey Neave and Tony Luton slip away from the audience. They descend beneath the stage where trusted prisoners stand guard. In the darkness, they strip off their British uniforms and transform. Within minutes, Two German officers stand where British prisoners had been. Field gray tunics, peaked caps, polished buttons gleaming in the dim light. Luten carries a sheaf of papers, the forged documents that will explain their presence if questioned. At 8:45 p.m., they push open the hidden door. The corridor ahead leads directly into German-occupied territory. No Allied prisoner has ever walked this passage voluntarily. The slightest error means capture, possibly execution. They walk, footsteps measured, breathing controlled. A German orderly passes them in the corridor. He salutes. Luten returns the salute without breaking stride. Neave keeps his eyes forward, heart pounding beneath his counterfeit uniform. They reach the guardhouse courtyard. Open ground. Searchlights sweep the snow. Guards patrol with rifles shouldered. Neave and Luten stride across as though they own the castle. At 9 p.m., they approach the main gate. A sentry blocks their path. He studies their faces, the uniforms, the confident posture. Luten speaks first, crisp German. A story about urgent business in the town. The sentry hesitates. 3 seconds pass. An eternity. The sentry steps aside. The gate swings open. Neave and Luten walk through. They do not run. They do not look back. The cobblestone streets of Colditz town stretch before them, silent and dark. Behind them, the castle stands unaware. The roll call is 30 minutes away. The clock is ticking. The moment they cleared the castle walls, Neave and Luten stripped off their German uniforms and buried them in the snow. Beneath, they wore civilian clothes, dark suits assembled from traded garments and altered prison wear. They were no longer German officers. Now they were Dutch laborers, foreign workers traveling south for employment. Their forged papers supported the story. Their accents would have to do the rest. The first objective, the Colditz railway station. They walked 2 miles through frozen darkness, avoiding main roads. At the station, Luten purchased 2 tickets to Leipzig. The clerk barely glanced at them. 2 more foreign workers in a Reich that depended on forced labor from across occupied Europe. The train rattled through the night. German soldiers filled the carriages, some sleeping, others playing cards. Neave and Luten sat in silence, pretending to doze. Every uniform that passed made Neave's chest tighten. At Leipzig, they changed trains. Then again at Regensburg. Each station posed new risks. Military police patrolled platforms, checking documents at random. Twice, officers walked past their seats without stopping. Luck held. But luck would not last forever. By January 8th, they reached Ulm, just 90 miles from the Swiss border. From here, the trains became too dangerous. Controls tightened near neutral territory. They would travel the final stretch on foot. They walked through snow-covered farmland, slept in barns, ate what little food they had carried from Colditz. The temperature never rose above freezing. On January 9th, they reached the outskirts of Singen, the last German town before Switzerland. Beyond it lay the Rhine River. Beyond the Rhine lay freedom. But German patrols guarded every crossing. Searchlights swept the border through the night. They needed one final plan. The night of January 9th, 1942. 4 days since Colditz. 90 miles on foot. Neave and Luten crouched in a frozen ditch outside Singen, watching German border patrols move through the darkness. Flashlights swept the snow. Dogs barked in the distance. They had studied the patrol patterns for hours. There was a gap, a 2-minute window when the guards turned east. 2 minutes to cross open ground and reach the trees on the Swiss side. At 2 a.m., the patrol turned. Neave and Luten ran. Snow crunched beneath their feet. Their lungs burned in the frozen air. Behind them, a searchlight began its sweep back toward their position. They hit the tree line just as the light passed. Silence. No shouts. No gunfire. No dogs. They kept moving through the forest, hearts pounding, not daring to believe. Then Luten stopped. He pointed at a wooden post, half buried in snow. A Swiss boundary marker. Airey Neave fell to his knees. For the first time in 20 months, He was no longer a prisoner, no longer hunted, no longer behind enemy lines. He was free. Swiss border guards found them at dawn, two exhausted men stumbling through the snow. Within days, British intelligence arranged transport. Neave crossed through neutral Spain and Portugal. On April 2nd, 1942, Airey Neave landed in England. He was the first British officer to successfully escape from Colditz Castle. He would not be the last. Airey Neave returned to England as a hero, but he refused to rest. Within weeks of his arrival, British intelligence recruited him into MI9, the secret agency responsible for helping Allied prisoners escape from Nazi-occupied Europe. Neave's experience made him invaluable. He knew the routes, he knew the risks, he knew what it took to survive. For the next 3 years, Neave helped organize escape networks across France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. The lines he established guided over 1,000 Allied airmen and soldiers to safety. Pilots shot down over occupied territory. Soldiers trapped behind enemy lines. Each one following paths that Neave had helped design. After the war, he served as a prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials. He personally delivered the indictments to Hermann Goering, Rudolf Hess, and other Nazi leaders. The prisoner had become the judge. Neave entered politics, rising to become a member of parliament and a close advisor to Margaret Thatcher. He was appointed Shadow Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. On March 30th, 1979, a car bomb planted by the Irish National Liberation Army exploded beneath his vehicle as he left the House of Commons. Airey Neave died instantly. He was 63 years old. The man who had escaped the most secure prison in Nazi Germany was killed in the shadow of British democracy. But his legacy endures. In courage. In defiance. In the unbreakable will to be free. Colditz could not hold him. Nothing could.